Alexa is actually 1960s CIA technology.
Is it?
Yep,
I use that all the
we do.
time.
Our grandson talks to it. He has a conversation with him.
You're all quiet, which is great. Up there is a different matter. I'm Chris Williamson. I'm the chair of the Jackson Memorial Library Board. I'm here with Adrian Berg, who is the. Do I need to start over again? Yeah, okay. I'm here with Adrian Berg, who is the director of the library. And since she's still on crutches, and by the way, would like to thank the EMS folks again for being heroes. But anyway, we usually do this event at the library, and people suggested that maybe this year, for a combination of reasons, mostly because of the Zoom, we're at the time that we did this last year, we weren't as technologically as advanced. So I think now we could probably do it. But how many of you are aware that if you all came to the library to sit down, you wouldn't all fit, right? A number of you. So this is actually a good idea. So my role tonight is to allow the candidates to introduce themselves. They're going to talk about who they are, why they're running, what they care about, what they think their priorities are. I'm going to ask a softball question after they do that, and then we'll open it up for those of you who are here who have questions for the various candidates. I want to thank Bill Batty for setting all of this up, including the name tags, and Brandon and everybody else who has helped with this this evening. So there is one thing that I'd like to say before I start, and I have told the candidates this. When you decide to run for an office, you're really putting yourself out there, aren't you? I mean, if we all just take a moment and think about that, I think maybe that will help center us as we think about the questions we might want to ask and what we care about as voters in the town. But regardless of how we might choose to vote, I think we can respect anyone who is willing to stand up and say, I care enough about what happens in this town to put myself up as a candidate. So before we start, I just want to say thank you to all of you. And so, yeah. And I also, whoops, did you? I also want to say that I am not Ryan Miller. His wife says that he has a Zone D Lobster Council meeting this evening, so he won't be here. So, and we don't have biographical information from him as far as I know. At least we didn't have it a bit ago. So he sends his regards and regrets. And with that, I'm going to start, and we're going to start with the select board candidates, Ryan being one of them and obviously not here. And so not alphabetically, but just for the far right, we're going to start, and they're going to introduce themselves and say something about who they are and what they care about. And then we'll go to the school board candidates. And then when we do my softball question, we're going to reverse the order, and then it'll be your turn. Okay? All right.
All right, thank you very much. Chris stole my thunder because the gist of my campaign is that.
Is it on?
Can you hear me? Okay. Gotcha. My name is Ryan Abante. I live in Port Clyde with my wife and my daughter. My daughter's a second grader at St. George School. And as I was saying, Chris kind of said what my campaign is about. I care enough about this town and the people in it to put myself forward as a candidate and want to work towards doing the things that the people of this town care about and making the policies and driving the action to secure a solid future for people who live here today and people who live here tomorrow. I happen to think that St. George is a really remarkable town by virtue of the goodwill that we have in our diverse community, and that's something I take really seriously and something that I want to work to tap into and also grow if I'm lucky enough to be elected to the select board. My priorities include maintaining the things that keep this town special and unique, which include how pretty it is to look at, but do not end there. I think we need to think hard and long about what we can do for climate resiliency. Our economy matters or depends upon the ability to get in and out of the peninsula. There's real threats from rising water, and there are things to do to make sure that we're prepared. I also think that as we devise plans for things to do in the future, that it's really important to listen to everybody in the community and get a wide array of voices and understand that the select board is not here to make up policies, but to do the will of the people of the town, the whole community. And that's something I also take very seriously. As a person who's lived here only since 2020, I think I've put together a good track record of getting involved and doing work. I'm involved as a board member at the library. I'm on the board of the St. George Sailing Foundation. I'm on the board of the Port Clyde Water District. I was a Dragonheart volunteer at St. George School. It matters to me, and I enjoy being connected and working with the people of this community and building the fabric that makes this a very different place than a lot of other towns of this size in this country. Professionally, I work as a project manager for a really big IT company called Red Hat. And a lot of what I do in my professional capacity mirrors and I think prepares me for the work of this select board seat, which involves figuring out what people's priorities are, making sure good ideas get oxygen and get heard and have a seat at the table. And then once a plan is put together, driving it to completion, getting things done, and making sure that people have a clear picture of where things stand before they get done. I think the town government here is doing a pretty great job on many fronts. I think there are opportunities to make sure that people are aware of what's going on. There's a lot of transparency, but you kind of have to go and get it. I think that making sure that we have an open window into the activities of the town can do a great job of, keeping rumors from flying and keeping people from getting worried about things that aren't actually problems. And in closing, I'll say that that's all the talking at you I'd like to do tonight. I really look forward to hearing what you are thinking about, answering your questions, and letting you analyze how I can answer them. Thanks.
I'm Randy Elwell. Everybody that knows me knows I can talk, but I don't talk well in front of a lot of people. I can't beat what Mr. Aponte did. I was on the select board before for 9 years. I've had an 18-month or 2-year lapse because you have to by town regulations. I felt that when I was a selectman, I helped represent most, everybody in town the best I could, especially the fishermen with a couple of issues that came up when I first was a selectman. We need to protect our school, our children. Mr. Aponte's little girl, I hauled her on the school bus. I've worked for the school for a little over 30 years. Been on the fire department over 40 years. Run on the ambulance for a long time. My family's been here, I don't know, since the mid 1730s, I guess. So when I say my parents are cousins, they probably are. But I just do my best. I mean, I don't know until the issues come up what I can do for people, but listen to the town like I did before and do my best.
I'm Jane Conrad. I live in Tenants Harbor. I've served on the select board for 3 years and been chair for the last 2 years. Our town's facing some significant challenges, but we also have some exciting new opportunities. I think all of you know what some of the challenges are. Sea level rise being a big one that threatens our infrastructure, the homes we live in, the working waterfronts, that's the economic engine of our town, and the other sectors as well. The cost of housing is such a challenge that young people find it hard to move here and live and work here, which we need young people to take over from those of us who are retired. And the increasing number of seasonal residents we have is a demographic challenge for, again, workforce for the school. And so those are all things that need attention. And it's the select board that decides how much time and attention will be devoted to the big picture, long-term issues. We have a terrific town manager and staff that run the town every day. They're paving the roads, taking care of the landings, registering your boat and your car, all of those things every day. But it's really the select board and the committees that, because we don't have an economic development person on our staff like bigger cities, we haven't had a planner on our staff. So it's been volunteers working on town committees and the elected officials that are working on these long-term issues.
Yes,
The
I
select,
got it.
as Ryan
Watching it.
mentioned, the select board under
Yeah,
our town form of
I got
government
it.
does not make policy unless
Yeah,
you
I'm
give
watching
us
it.
the authority to do it. It's the voters
I wrote it down for you. Just a minute. It's
who adopt every ordinance.
055224.
If we want a dog
Okay.
ordinance, it has to
All
be
right.
done by you. When we were
Hi.
looking to set user fees for the Port Clyde Landing, unless you gave us that authority, the select board couldn't even say how much we're charging for graves at the cemetery. You had to give us that authority. Otherwise, you would all be voting every year on what we should charge for a grave at the cemetery. So it's really important for us to know what matters to the community, since our job is to implement what you've told us you want. I was very involved in the 2-year comprehensive plan process, during which we did interviews, 4 surveys, and asked people what mattered to them. And that turned into a roadmap that the town voted on for the select board and the committees to follow for the coming decade. So those are the priorities that the select board needs to be following. We've been lucky that past select boards have identified things like sea level rise as threats, so that St. George has been collecting data and working on how we'll address that for years. We're way ahead of most towns in Maine. And you're familiar with a lot of the other things like the Port Clyde Landing that the Harbor Committee did. You know, it's the Conservation Committee that's doing trails. It's really the priorities in the comprehensive plan that we will be implementing. But we're a little town with limited resources, and we can't do all these things, and we can't do all these things alone. So it's really important that we have partners. And I've been very involved in building relationships with some of these partners and some of these new partners to town to get things done. So we do have relationships with people at the Grace Institute, at the school, the CDC, the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association. I've been very involved in planning the working waterfront panel discussions to educate people in town about our fishing community and promote and support their work, because how important that is. And Colby coming to town is going to be a new opportunity for collaborations. And so we've reached out to them and shared the comprehensive plan and met with them about different issues that are coming down the pike. So if I'm reelected, I would like us to prioritize in the coming year economic development, which is something that hasn't been, other than in small ways, a priority, primarily the fishing industry, but also to keep the things that we love about St. George the way that they are, to the extent that we can, in the face of demographic changes and environmental changes that are coming. And I'm very committed to transparency in government. This is my last thing. You know, we have a new website, and Bill Batty does a fabulous job of posting things that are happening. If you don't know it, you can sign up for text or email notifications of things that are happening in town. And so, and we now record the meetings on YouTube and those are posted. So we really are here to do work for the community. And so if anybody ever wants to talk to me about any of that, you know where to find me.
I did forget one thing, and that is that both of the offices or both of the select board positions are contested positions. And so it's unfortunate that Ryan isn't here um, to be contrasting potentially, I don't know, with Jane. We don't have two contested positions for the school board. Mallory is not her, she is not having her position contested, so she's running unopposed. So this is not a hint about how long she should be talking.
It's funny you should start that way. Actually, I asked my children last night why I should run for school board, and my 6-year-old said, "Mom, because you love children." So I thought about just leaving it at that, short and sweet. But so my name is Mallory Tripp. I was born and raised here. I live in Spruce Head now with my husband and 3 children. I spent a long time thinking about why I wanted to run for school board. I am almost at the end of my first term on the school board, so I have some data and some thoughts to share with you guys about how that has gone. So during my time on the school board, I have had the opportunity to be a part of various school-wide initiatives that have pushed the boundaries of what traditional education looked like when many of us were school age. With the support of our community and forward-thinking leaders, our school has had the ability to truly meet the need of each and every child where they are at and provide opportunities for a wide variety of learners to see and feel success in their learning careers at St. George School. I hope to continue my time on the school board so that I can continue to focus on and support these initiatives on behalf of our town. One of my greatest investments during my time on the board has been in early childhood. Our school became early adopters and one of the first in the state to take on care of 3-year-olds in the public school setting. Since this time, our programming has drawn attention from state leaders who have visited our school and hope to adopt many of our methods and recreate our programming across the state. Even though it's still early, our programs have seen huge success in meeting the needs of children and families in our town. We are seeing not only social, emotional, and academic successes in our students as they move through grade levels, but we have seen financial benefits to early intervention. Our special education budget had a decrease for the upcoming fiscal year of 14.5%. Yeah, a decrease in special education funding is something very few, if any, other districts in the state of Maine are seeing right now. We believe much of this has to do with the creation of our early childhood programming and the early intervention students now receive before their kindergarten age. I have also worked closely with members of our wellness committee to bring forth health and wellness initiatives for staff and students alike. This fall, we hosted our first ever school-wide lobster feed. We fed every student and staff member fresh Maine lobster for lunch. We enjoyed this meal outside together with traditional lobster-baked sides like corn on the cob and melted butter. I worked with industry leaders from the Department of Marine Resources, Maine Lobstermen's Association, and NEFSA to pair this luncheon with classroom education on the lobster species, how the industry supports and affects our community, and the heritage it holds in this town. It was a testament to Maine's most iconic industry when we had staff and students stand if they had a family member involved in the industry. From lobstermen to scientists, bait dealers, boat builders, and lobster buyers, it was clear that this industry holds significant importance in our small community. These initiatives and the ones like them are what draw me to the work of as a school board member. I am invested in the children of this town and committed to the success of our school. I made it a priority of mine when I was elected to my first term to become a well-known face in the building, and I'm proud to say that I know every staff member by name and almost every student as well. The students are not numbers on a sheet of paper during decision-making processes, but the students I volunteer with, the players I coach, and the friends of my own children. The staff are individuals whom I have grown to have huge respect for and admire their work on a daily basis. I'm proud to work alongside them and hope to continue to do so in support of the children of St. George.
Hello, Is it close enough? Can you guys hear me? Closer. Okay. Hello, my name's Betsy Lawrence. I grew up outside Buffalo, New York, and moved to Maine in 2009 to start my residency at Maine Medical Center. In 2012, my husband Caleb and I moved to St. George. Our daughters, Emily and Helen, attend the St. George School, and both have had an overwhelmingly positive experience the last 8 years. My interest in running for school board stems from my volunteering in classrooms and both of my children attending the school. Some of the standout moments include volunteering in Ms. Albright's classroom, chaperoning the 5th grade overnight at Tanglewood, helping to run yearly field day celebrations, and coaching Girls on the Run, which focuses on building confidence as well as mental and physical endurance. Over the past 2 years, I've greatly enjoyed the opportunity to be a Dragon Heart volunteer. 2 to 3 times a week, I read with 1st and 2nd graders. The amount of growth and joy these students experience as they learn to read is priceless. I love so many things about the St. George School. I love that there are small crews or homerooms. I love there are house crews, like in Harry Potter, which are a blend of pre-K to 8th grade students participating in monthly events. I love the reading and innovative wellness challenges. I loved the math carnival last week. Who knew math could be so much fun? But most of all, I love the teachers, administration, and support staff at the St. George School. The teachers know their students' strengths and support their individual learning styles. The teachers frequently integrate educational field trips, cultural activities, and unique hands-on learning opportunities at the Grace Innovation Center and Herringut into their curriculum. My goal is to sustain these programs while being fiscally responsible. I look forward to partnering with nonprofit organizations such as the St. George CDC, as well as seeking grants to grow these programs without burdening taxpayers. In my professional life, I've been working as an emergency medicine physician at Penn Bay Medical Center since 2012. I've served as department chair and head of peer review committee. Additionally, I mentor 3rd-year medical students in the Tufts Main Track program. These experiences have strengthened my leadership and communication skills. The St. George School has been a highly positive, welcoming, and friendly community where perseverance and collaboration are recognized. I love cheering for students when they win awards and are celebrated for demonstrating these St. George values at the monthly community meetings. If elected to serve on the school board, I hope to continue this and foster this environment of kindness, positivity, intellectual curiosity, and exploration. I think St. George is a wonderful place to live and for children to thrive. I would like to continue to support this mission as a school board member. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Desiree. I'm running for school board for this next year. I'm fortunate that my husband and I get to live in St. George. We have 2 kids, my son Parker, who's in the pre-K program currently, my daughter Avery, who I'm hoping will get in within the next 2 years. I actually worked in the 3K program for a little while. To piggyback off what Mallory said, to watch those kids grow as 3 and 4-year-olds is incredible. I grew up here in St. George. I attended the St. George School from kindergarten all the way through 8th grade, and it's where I built lifelong friendships and developed deep appreciation for education and community. This school holds a special place in my heart, not only because of the experiences as a student, but because of the incredible staff, both past and present, who have helped shape generations of students. After graduating high school, I began working at the East Wind Inn, where I had the opportunity to connect more deeply with members of our community. That experience sparked my passion for helping others and being actively involved in a place that I call home. More recently, I had the opportunity to work at the school during this past year, and I remain on the substitute list. This experience gave me more valuable insight into the day-to-day efforts that it takes to keep everything running smoothly. It also deepened my respect for the educators, the staff, who work tirelessly behind the scenes to support our students. I was part of the first graduating class of Oceanside in 2012, and to say that I was kind of disappointed I didn't get to go to Georges Valley with where my mom went and my uncle is probably an understatement. And I really was kind of uncertain about the merger. My dad encouraged me to attend a meeting to learn more about it, to kind of stand up for what I believed in. That moment stuck with me, and it's a big part of why I'm here today. That lesson that my dad, Corey Jameson, taught me was to show up and to stand up for what you believe in has stayed with me for all those years. And now I'm here doing just that. I'm running for school board because I care deeply about this school, our students, and the community. I want someone to be someone who listens, who shows up, and who works together with parents, staff, and community members to make thoughtful decisions. As both a parent and someone who has been a student and staff member here, I bring a unique perspective and a genuine commitment to doing what's best for our kids. Thank you for your time. Welcome you to me again.
The people with questions should be coming up here. All right, so raise your hand. You can come up. Maybe we can line up 2 or 3 people in a row, move it forward, and keep going. Clear? Here, okay. So here's my softball question, which basically we've already heard the answers to, but we'll start now, this time, my right, your left. With Desiree. So as someone running for school board, what would you say is the biggest challenge facing the school in the coming 1, 2, or 3 years? And that's the same question for all 3 of you. Thank you.
So I think the biggest challenge currently facing this school is diversity. I think that we're all kind of divided, and to me, it doesn't matter what side you're from because it's about the kids, and it's about the kids coming to school and feeling safe and loved and encouraged to be there for education. And I think that really it shouldn't be about like the teachers and the parents. It's about the kids and how they can succeed within their classroom.
All right. I think I would say that over the last 5 to 6 months that I've seen loss in trust for the teachers that are at the St. George School. And if elected to be on the school board, I would like to help rebuild our trust and faith in our educators and our teachers because I think they're extremely talented, wonderful. They do so much for the students that's not apparent or known in the community. So I would just like to try to let them teach and not be micromanaged and just support them in that process. Thank you.
So I think one of the biggest challenges right now, our school is in a time of transition. We're in our 11th year as an independent school district. We just opened this amazing building. It's the first in the nation. We're the first people doing this. So with that comes, how do we do that? How do we do that successfully? What does that look like? How do we provide high quality education, this out of the box thinking, while still being sustainable and responsible to our taxpayers? How do we meet the needs of every child and every staff member? Because everyone in that building, staff and children alike, have a different comfort level with that kind of learning. And we have to be cognizant of that and how we meet everyone's needs and use that building to the best of our abilities. I said, while making sure that everyone is comfortable and happy with the outcome.
So thank you very much. I'm going to ask a slightly different question. You'll recognize it, but it won't have to do with the school. It'll have to do with the town. So what do you see as, and you've each talked in one way or another about the challenges that the town faces, and you may have already answered this, but if you had to pick one challenge that you think is more significant, needs more work than any other, you can repeat what you already said, but what would it be?
I think the biggest challenge for our community as a whole is the sea level rise question. But for the select board, in many ways, I think the challenge is making sure that the community knows what we're doing about issues like that. Because it is truly remarkable what the Resilience Committee is doing about that. There was actually a program at the library last week during which that committee shared their interim findings about what the impacts are likely to be in our town. And so it was great that there were about 25 people there, but I would have liked to have seen a group this size with a Zoom this size, hearing about that. And so I have been a very strong advocate of our making sure that people have lots of opportunities to engage with us and know what the town is doing. But we do need to continue to improve on that because I want people to be engaged on these big, hard questions, some of which will be expensive to address. And there will be hard choices. You know, do we abandon a road because it's going to be too expensive to fix it every year? Those kinds of things. So it's really important for people to know what the town is doing and for you to say how you feel about it and for us to communicate all of that.
I think that sea level rise is important, but I think one of the biggest things in town, and it has been even when I was selectman before, is affordable housing. It seems like a lot of houses come up for sale and a lot of families that want to move into our town or work in our town can't afford it. And I think that's more of a priority right now than sea level rise. I'm not saying sea level rise isn't important to me, but I think affordable housing, in the job market in town, people coming in and working, in one form or another, being able to stay here, afford rent, and or afford a house.
So I agree with both of those comments. And both of those are in the comprehensive plan identified as priorities. I think personally, I think one of the greatest risks that we face as a town of our size is complacency. We have it really good here. We also live in an era where you kind of want to tune out sometimes and not get too involved and think too hard about difficult things because there's a limit to what we can take. But to touch or to dovetail a bit on what Jane said, people need to know what's happening in town and in town government. We need to encourage them to get involved, and we need to really engage with them to make sure that we are representing their voices. So yeah, I think it combines both transparency and communication and making sure people know that other people aren't going to solve your problems. We're here to represent you, the select board, but the solutions will come through working together.
What did he mean? Show us. Bill, we have to, okay, come on up. Come on, Bonnie, get up there. There's some, down that Bonnie's up, if someone wants to come behind somewhere.
My question has to do with something that I think would affect all of us, I mean, school board and select board, and that is our town's ability to maintain a population that will keep our schools going. I'm very concerned with two issues. One, the housing affordability. It's preventing a lot of younger families with children from living here. And number two, the excuse me, the great number of people who are moving in who are taking up what used to be a year-round home for a family, and they're living here 3 to 4 months out of the year. I'm very concerned about our community and the sustainability of our young population. So I don't know how that can be addressed, but excuse me.
Okay.
We'll start with the school.
I have just a tidbit of information. I share your concern, and we at the school level had the same concern, but we keep track of those numbers and what our enrollment looks like. And we have not seen a decline in enrollment. And I think partly has to do with some of the things, the wonderful things that we're doing up there on the hill. We are certainly losing some that are unable to afford to live here or can't find housing, but we're attracting some as well because of what we're able to offer. So, and encouragingly said, we have not seen a decline in our enrollment.
Can I ask a follow-up clarification?
Yep.
I'm just curious, with the addition of the 3-year-old program and the 4, are you apples to apples, or
Is it the aggregate number?
So even without the 3 and 4-year-olds, our enrollment has had it's a steady line.
So this,
Okay,
oh,
sorry.
uh,
Let's-
oh,
yeah.
Do you want everyone to answer? Okay.
Sorry. Told that I need a microphone. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear from everybody because the questions, that Bonnie's question was to everybody. So this is everybody's chance to respond, okay? You got, no, that's all right.
Let's see. I don't know if I have an exact answer for that question, but I do think that from visiting other schools, playing soccer and different sports on the bus line and travel soccer with my 2 daughters, that the Grace Innovation Center and some of the other programs that are unique to St. George do draw a lot of attention from the Mid-Coast. And I know that there is more interest. Since living here, 3 of my colleagues have moved down to the peninsula. They now all live here. So I think it's just getting the word out just about how many great opportunities there are. So I think maybe partnering with the select board just so that it's known that there are wonderful preschool programs. That's such a cost prohibitive issue for families. So maybe the word needs to get out more, but hopefully that will continue to attract families.
I know from personal experience that housing is hard. I got super fortunate about 4 years ago to find a very cheap rental. But as a young person with a family, I know how hard it is to find housing down here. I also don't know what the solution is. And I agree with you, the Airbnbs, they're kind of hard to look at sometimes when you're like driving down and you're like, oh wow, that's a nice house. And so I see your concern. I also know that because I grew up here, that's a goal of mine to have my kids go to this school. That may not be everybody's goal, but I know that like this school has a lot to offer, and I think that people in surrounding communities are seeing that.
sorry. All right, sorry. So during the comprehensive plan process, we collected data about who lives here and who's seasonal and who's year-round and all of that. And the best estimates we have are that 38% of the homes in St. George are not inhabited year-round. So that's a pretty big number. 11% of the 100%, 11% are short-term rentals and 27% are seasonal residents. So, you know, that's the makeup of that significant percentage. The community, we have as one of the select board priorities for this current year to have a community conversation about whether we want to begin monitoring or having a registry of short-term rentals so that we know, you know, that they have a septic capacity, what they're doing, all of that sort of information. And we've had several meetings with a consultant that has developed programs like that for other communities, and that will happen this summer. So you will all have a chance to come to a meeting to talk about short-term rentals and whether our community wants to regulate that, and how it might look if you all want to do that. Mainly on the housing issue, obviously it's a free market economy and it's a hard thing. You know, government can't do everything. Government can't force people to live here full time that want to pay cheaper taxes in Florida or enjoy warmer winters. We can't control, you know, the median price here, I think is 450,000 in St. George. That is a lot of money. A lot of us here could not afford our own homes if we had to buy them today. That's true for me. But there are some things that town government can do. And fortunately, the CDC has taken this on as a project. And we have met with them and are working on possible ordinance changes that we would bring to the voters. You all would have to agree to anything that gets proposed to make it possible to have some changes in density or setbacks that might mean that there would be some developments of more affordable than 450 housing.
I agree with it. I don't know what the solution is. When I was on the select board, Jerry Hall sitting here, he was on, we had this discussion a lot. The CDC come in, they're looking at town property, and that went away, but they purchased property on 73. I know, and I agree with Jane, back in the day, it makes me sound old, but I wouldn't be able to live where I am if it weren't for family. A lot of the family had land, of course, from ever, and I wouldn't be able to live there. My boy was fortunate that he got some land from my aunt, but there's families that just can't, and that's, people that are moving into town is awesome, but they have that, I feel, and I'm sorry, I don't want to offend no one, but they have that high-end job that can allow them to live and buy a house in St. George and live here. And people want to sell their house for a profit, but the problem is when they sell their house for an overly high profit, it puts every property around them at that level in one form or another. And I don't know the solution, but I think that working with the CDC and with their program and trying to get it so people like Desiree with young families can afford a rent. A rent near me, I know right now is like $3,500 a month. And it's like that, to me, is just ridiculous for a slum house. Sorry, but
So there unfortunately isn't a magic wand that anybody can wave to make houses cheaper. But I can say as a parent of a young child in St. George, anything we can do to encourage young families to come and get in is worth it. Our daughter's the only kid on the street. And we recently had the experience of a family with 2 kids renting across the street, and it changed our world. It completely did. And it's just a reminder of what a living community can be. So there isn't an easy answer. It's really worth fighting for. And I think there's probably just tactical things that we can do as a town to make the right kind of building easier. I think those conversations will not be easy, but it's worth trying to make this a place where people can come and join the community and raise kids.
All right, so we had one brave question. These, come on up. And again, while this gentleman is, I'm sorry, what is your name?
My name is John.
John, and you live in the town?
I do.
Great. So while John is asking his question, if it wasn't one you were thinking about, be ready to raise your hand. These folks are giving their time. They care about this, and they'd love to hear your questions. Thank you, John.
So sorry again to harp on the affordable housing issue. You guys were talking, people always talk about affordable housing, and we all recognize it's a problem, but don't know the sort of methods to be able to create more housing. At the state level, one thing that's been proposed is lessening the burden to be able to build ADUs, accessory dwelling units. Is the town sort of positioned properly to be in compliance with those state laws? And can you guys talk about that a little bit?
We are in compliance. I am doing it.
I know when I was on there before, that came up and we started working on it, but Jane's probably the best one. She's still been on the board, so you can answer that better.
So we are in compliance with the laws that are already in effect to allow for ADUs, which is why Ryan can build one on his property apparently.
Yep.
And we do have a member of the planning board and staff working on adapting ordinances to the set of new laws that were passed in the past year that haven't gone into effect yet. But we also will be working with the CDC, the St. George Community Development Corporation, about other possible ordinance changes that would benefit a development like the one they have in mind called Brookside off Route 73. So yes, and also I think one of the things that we've done more frequently, I'd say in the last couple of years than I'm aware from select boards in the past, is engaged in some legislative advocacy. So where the select board agrees and believes that the community agrees, we have submitted letters to the legislature or the Maine Municipal Association in support of legislative changes. So that's something that we can do, since it is something that kind of it's going to take all of these things to make a difference.
And a follow-up question, considering that some people who might be a little bit more opposed to the idea of ADU construction and having potentially deeper pockets than other folks in the community, is there any anticipated sort of legal pushback or that folks might be fighting that? Or are we set for smooth sailing in terms of laying out ADU construction in that way?
I don't have an answer to your legal question, but I think that ADUs are also potential short-term rentals.
Mm.
So I don't think we can put all of our stock in allowing or encouraging people to create just more stock, because some ADUs might be suitable for like year-round, rentals, and some might not. So I think it's, like I said, I don't think it's a magic wand,
Right.
but I do anticipate that it's a good thing for the town to have the ability to create more capacity. And, we are constrained by capacity at this point as well as by price.
So an important thing to know is that we have to comply with state law. We don't get, communities in general can make stricter laws than the state, but they cannot make more lenient laws. So the state has said we have to allow ADUs, so we have to allow ADUs, and we do. For other ordinance changes that are local laws, like if we were considering something different than the ones the state has passed, only the voters of St. George would do that. The select board will bring a proposal to the community, but the community can vote it down if they don't like it. So.
Perfect. Thank you.
Ann Cox, and I just want to add a little clarification. I'm on the planning board, and when we wrote the ordinance and when the town voted on it for ADUs, we made it clear that the ADUs in St. George would be no more than 1,500 square feet, and that they would be, if they were rentals, it was for not less than a year. So that was trying to address the short-term issue. So that's what we were trying to do, and so it's just a point.
Everybody okay?
Bill, yep, go ahead. All right, Steve, just before you ask your question, Bill, are you getting any chat or questions coming in from Zoom? Okay.
No questions on Zoom at this point.
Okay, we heard Brandon say that. All right, go ahead, Steve.
Okay, first I just wanted to say what a great community we live in. It's a really special place. I'm Steve Cartwright on the select board and glad not to be a candidate this year. I applaud all of you for stepping up, and all of you made really good remarks. My question is for the school board candidates, and there is national and outside pressure on banning books, restricting what can be taught in curriculum. And there's, of course, issues about gender identity. And you don't have to get way into that, but I'm just wondering, in general, would you defend a teacher's right to, use whatever books they want, that sort of thing? Or would you think that some restrictions are in order, if that makes sense as a question? Appreciate it.
So I think my stance is that as a school board member, I would always support every teacher in the building. as long as parents are partners in education. I think that we need to support the child as a whole, our staff, the child, and their families in our community. So I think it's a case by case basis to answer your question. I think, and it all, if anything I've learned this winter, I've learned that school board doesn't, your personal opinion on those things that holds no weight. We create policy that follows the laws in the state of Maine. And we'll always do that. We have guidelines to follow. We're going to follow state laws because that's what our job is to do. Our job is to not impose our personal opinions on things.
I agree with Mallory on that topic, but I would also say that I think it depends on the age group. So if this is the 3K pre-K, then it's different than if it's 7th and 8th grade. I think middle school level is an area where they need to they need to explore the world. They need to see things beyond just St. George, and they need to be able to read books from everywhere. I want the students that go to the St. George school to be successful if they desire to stay and live the rest of their days on the peninsula, or if they want to move to New Zealand, or they want to be, an astrophysicist somewhere. They need to be able to be successful. And I think that is supporting them how they show up to school. And that could be in any variety of way. But I would lean against censoring teachers. I trust that the teachers teach age appropriately, and I think to allow them to choose the books, to choose their curriculum. If there is a sensitive topic being taught, you can sign a permission slip to opt out. But I think on the whole, trusting the teachers that they know what's best for the students and to let kids be kids and to support them.
Kind of piggybacking off of both of you, I agree. It is age appropriate. Like something my son in pre-K, I may not want him to know versus, like in 7th or 8th grader where they're older, they're more advanced, they're going through health, they're going through PE. And again, like you have to follow the laws. And I'm pretty ignorant to all this. I'm not going to lie to anybody. Like I'm young, I'm a young mom. So I'm kind of going through this as I go, but it's definitely something that you have to trust your teachers. You have to trust the school. Parents should be involved in big decisions like that. So if there is a book or anything of that sort, and you as a parent may not want your kid to learn that, there should be like a study hall or an opt-out option for your kid at an age appropriate level.
Thank you. My name is Buzz Billick. I am a resident of Martinsville. 2 quick questions. The first one is for Mr. Williamson. I should know the answer, but could you please tell me the date that these votes are taking place?
May 11th.
It's May 11th.
May 11th. Thank you. My next question is my next question is specifically for Jane. When you shared your presentation, your last comment was if you were reelected, that you looked at the priority as economic development. And I'm wondering if you could share with the group tonight a little preview of what might be involved. I know we've spoken a lot tonight about housing, but you probably have some additional thoughts. And I just wanted to know if before the night is over, if you could share some of that with us.
So really what got me thinking about this is the fact that we have Colby coming to town, and the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association recently acquired the former Wildcat property. And so these are 2 significant new players to our town. We also have the Grace Innovation Center doing workforce development. That's a relatively new in its current form. Driver of, workforce and related to the economy. And so even though the select board hasn't played much of a role in economic development, historically, earlier this year, I persuaded um, Mike Felton, Ryan Lashane, who's president of the St. George Business Alliance, and Rob Kelly from the CDC to get together to try to start a group that would meet, 3 or 4 times a year to talk about economic development in St. George, with the idea that we will bring the Colby program director when that person's on board, and the Maine Coast Fishermen's Association, so that we can be talking to each other. What are you thinking? Are there ordinance changes that need to be made for something? We started talking about the need for parking in Tenants Harbor, for example. We don't, like most communities around here, have some street parking. The village of Tenants Harbor doesn't have street parking. So this lot is the only, like free municipal lot. And so anyway, things like that, whether it's also that a voter raised the issue of how cell service impacts businesses in town. So I've been involved in trying to work with Verizon and T-Mobile, which bought US Cellular, on improving cell service in town, because there are small businesses that can't use things like Apple Pay because the cell service is so poor here. So, it could be something we may or may not be able to persuade a for-profit company to improve our cell service, but I'm willing to try. And I do think definitely that collaborating with the partners that we already have in town and the new ones that are coming will be supportive, particularly the working waterfront, but hospitality, little businesses in town, the new general store operator, all those things. So that's really what I was, wherever you went, Buzz. That's what I have in mind as a new priority, in addition to all the stuff we already are doing.
So when is voting? May 11th. Good. All right. Thank you, Buzz. That was very helpful. Yes, another question?
Hi. Oop. Hello?
Hello.
Is it working? Yeah, I'm Chuck Payne. I live up the top of the hill. I have a question for the select people relative to the parking issue. And I'd like each of you to respond yes or no, how you feel about this. When I was young, somebody created a popular song, which was pave paradise and put up a parking lot. Okay, so I value green spaces in town, and I understand that there's a possibility that we may take a paradisical, green, lovely, small park in town, which I love and everybody loves, and we may take black, ugly asphalt and cover it with this horrible stuff for some reason that would enable people to not walk from here, or at the library, there's plenty of parking. Down at the marsh, there's plenty of parking. Up at the school, there's plenty of parking in the summertime because it's not in session. But so that some people could walk a few fewer steps, we're going to pave paradise and put up a parking lot. I'd like to put each of the three of you on the spot. Personally, how do you feel about this? Thank you.
Personally, Chuck, I heard about the parking lot up the street here, and I've got to agree with you. I totally disagree with it, my personal opinion. I think that the middle of town here don't have that green spot. The buoy tree is there. I think that if anything, we make it a little bit better for people to be able to sit. Dave and Bonnie can go down, sit at a picnic table and look at people. But I think that I don't agree with it. I feel that there in the town, in the middle of St. George, Tenants Harbor, there is not enough green. And the parking thing, I don't know how you would solve that. I know, the parking lot here, year round is pretty busy. The school, of course, when it's out of session, there is parking. I'm sure the library don't want 100 cars there all the time. I don't know, but I don't feel that we should take away a nice spot like that just to put in a parking lot. You want to go? You go next.
I wasn't familiar with that particular plan or proposal, and I don't agree with it in principle, but I'd like to see the numbers, the demand. It's hard for me to imagine that we need more parking downtown Tenants Harbor on the regular. But I think it raises an important topic, which is that if you build it, they will come. If we want businesses to grow and thrive, we need to also provide them the ability to handle their customers. So in that particular park, I would want to preserve, but I think that you can't have everything at once. You can't have swarms of people coming down to spend money and no place to park.
So the status of this is that we're still in a discussion. This is a relatively new idea that was, there was a piece in the town newsletter in February asking people what they thought about this. We asked the Harbor Committee for their input because some of you may know that, well, first of all, that lot wasn't ever planned to be a park. We were planning to build the library on that lot. Although where people were going to park, if that library had been there, I have no idea. But so it wasn't like we have had a long-term investment in that spot as a park. But the Tenants Harbor Fishing Co-op now basically does use almost all the spots at the Tenants Harbor landing and on the street there. And so we asked the Harbor Committee, because obviously there, and I've heard this from people who have recreational boater friends, that they come and, you know, get off the boat and want to walk around and go do something, and or people come down and there's no place for them to park because the fishermen have filled up all the spots. But if we were going to ask the fishermen to move, they need somewhere else to park. So that's one of the reasons that's been discussed. And we also did get input from the St. George Business Alliance, which is supportive of creating some parking in Tenants Harbor. And so there will be a survey that will go out and ask everybody in town what their views are about this. And the discussion that's happened so far is that the buoy would still be on that lot, just closer, you know, to the corner. And there would still be picnic tables and the trees along, you know, 131. But that part of that lot would be a parking lot. So it's an analysis that's taking place, and we definitely need to hear from everybody in town before any decisions will be made.
So it's 5 minutes after 7. Do we have another question? This is where the auctioneer comes in, going once. That was it. No, she not no. Oh. Well, don't thank me yet. I mean, I have a way of stretching things out for a long time. No, seriously. You know, you'll have an opportunity to meet with the candidates, obviously, after the formal presentation. You'll have an opportunity to find out from them other things as in the next month. And so I'm sure it's all right if people check in. It's great that we can put faces to names and have heard from you. So I've drawn it out enough. Everybody's good. All right. So whoop.
Yeah, you got to use the mic.
That absentee ballots are available, I think, starting Friday, but surely by Monday. So for people that aren't around on election day, they have that option.
which is part of why we did this tonight, right? So right. Okay. Thank you all for coming. By the way, you've heard other people say this, but this is part of why this town is such a fabulous town, right? Look at all the people who are here. Again, thank you to those of you who care enough about the town to make yourself visible. Really appreciate your willingness to do that. Bill, thank you very much. Brandon, thank you very much. Adrian, thank you. You're going to do this next year. And thank you all for coming.